Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Blazor e-commerce series. I'm Patrick and I will build this e-commerce website in Blazor WebAssembly now together with you, because the idea is you wanted this e-commerce website with Blazor WebAssembly and maybe we can do this thing together somehow. This is the first episode, so I prepared some stuff. Here you can already see the result of the shop. I called it Blazing Shop. Isn't this a great name? The result of the shop that you will have built after this episode. So it's the typical default Blazor WebAssembly application with the default design. We have a list of products here and also some categories. We have books, electronics and video games, and that's already it, but it's already also a lot. So we will build this thing and I will also commit this and push this, of course, to a GitHub, so this will be open source and maybe you can do something out of this already. And after every new episode, of course, I will push the code to this repository. But I would say we just start with a blank project. And for that, I use Visual Studio 2019. There it is already. And we create a new project. And for the database, but not in that episode, I guess it's in the next one, then we will use SQL Server Express. This is everything you have voted for in the community tab of my channel. So if you want, have a look. There are some votes from time to time where you can decide what should happen next. So here's the new project. It's a Blazor app, of course. You click next and we call this thing now Blazing Shop. That, and we create this. And now, of course, we're using the brand new .NET 5 framework. We are building a Blazor WebAssembly application, not a Blazor server app. WebAssembly, the typical way of building single page apps. The front end is on the client, on the machine of the user, and the server, the backend, then will be on a server when this app is published or deployed to a server, of course, or to Azure or whatever. We don't use authentication at this point. I want to use JSON Web Tokens and implement this completely manually. We configure this for HTTPS. This is great. And really important, please check ASP.NET Core hosted, because with that, maybe you already know this, we get 3 projects. We click create. And these 3 projects are the client project, the server project, and also the shared project. And this just means that in the shared project, we can use models, or we can add models that can be used in there you can see it now in the Solution Explorer, that can be used in the client project as well as in the server project. And the client project then, well, this is the client, this is the front end, all the stuff that is browser related. And on the server side, we have our web API with a controller already, the default or example controller, the weather forecast controller. And and the entity framework, of course, will be added here. Now, real quick, if you are absolutely not familiar with Blazor, because this course or this tutorial series should not be for the absolute beginner. If you are, though, please have a look at my Blazor blog series, or if you want to dive deeper and have a structured and comprehensive course, please have a look at the Blazor WebAssembly Full Stack Bootcamp, either here on YouTube, there's a 2-hour preview available, or check the link in the video description below. And by the way, what I want to do with that, this is kind of a spontaneous and freestyle tutorial series I want to build again together with you, but out of that I want to build a more comprehensive and maybe deeper, I don't know, at least structured course, an online course out of this. And for that I add a link in the video description as well to subscribe for that. So this is actually just a subscription to my newsletter. I won't spam you, I promise. At max, I send an email once a week, but it's rather once a month, maybe. And yeah, and when you want to have early access, for instance, to that course, please subscribe to my newsletter. Link in the video description, because then you can see the course before all the others can see it, and then have early access, and maybe even change it, get free access, whatever. Let me think about that. But these are the links. And while I'm at it, thank you very much to all my supporters that bought me a coffee. This really means a lot to me. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to support this channel and see more content by me, then please buy me a coffee, maybe sometime, or at least click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Okay, now enough with that. Thank you very much. These are the 3 projects, and again, the client project for the front end. We have a www root folder. This is typical, of course, with the index HTML. We have pages, Razor pages, because everything in Blazor WebAssembly is made out of Razor components, but we will see this in a minute. We will build another component, of course. And again, in the server project, we've got controllers. Later, we will have services and also the entity framework and so on. But the server project is not that important for this part of the series. The very first thing we should do is have a look at the client project here. And maybe we can just start this. We can use this play button here. I like this one. Or the other option is that I use all the time is the package manager console here. And with then this loaded, we can have a look at the directory, and then we have to change the directory to Blazing shop and then a server, and then we can run this thing with .NET watch run. And the watch command here is very important, because then we are starting a watcher that recognizes any change in our code and then builds the page and reloads it by itself. So this thing is building now, and in a minute we see that this port is already in use. So we have to go to the task manager and stop any .NET process. Let me just stop this for a minute. Okay, I have too many sessions open here. Let's try this again. Maybe have a sip of your coffee. And now it's working. Okay, so this is the current state of the application. As you can see, the design is pretty much the same, but of course it looks, or the content looks a bit different. We have here to nav menus, the counter. We can click this button and the counter is increased, and we already have a server call. But I again really don't want to get into this in detail. We will do this by ourselves, and I think it's best to learn all this along the way. So let's get back to the code, and the idea now is to have categories and products at this state of the shop. So we go to the Solution Explorer again, and now the very first thing I would like to do is add the models, and this would be here in the shared project. So let's just right click, add a new item, and then we add a class, and the first one is a category. And the second one, add a new item, would be a product. I was actually thinking about calling this item as well, but then when we create or add a new item, this might be a bit confusing, so I just stick with product. Okay, and now first let's get back to the category. This is a public class, and now we will give this category some properties. First, of course, we need an ID, then this category can have a name. After that, I want to give this thing a URL, because this is the way to get to the category and filter all the products. Then as well, I want to give this thing an icon. This is just a little string for the menu. And last not least, every category has a list of products, and this is already something that we will see later. This will be the relation, and just thinking of, and I'm just a bit confused by this error here, inconsistent accessibilities. Products, oh yeah, of course this class is not public yet, but now this error should be gone. Okay, so what I wanted to say is that with this you can already see a relation, and this will be important later with Entity Framework. But let's continue with the product. So we have our category. This is a great win. We have an ID, a name, URL, icon, and products. And now to the products, they get some more properties. And these will be first again an ID. Then we have a title. Then we have a description. Then an image, always important, string image, and by default we can give this thing already a value, of course. And what I like to do is, if we do not give this thing an image with a new URL, we are not uploading an image yet. In the beginning we will just use URLs. And for that, to have some kind of image, when we add in a product, then we will have this placeholder image here. And then we add a price of type decimal. And if you're wondering why the heck is this guy using decimal and not double or float, well, have a look at the documentation of Microsoft itself, and they say for financial and monetary stuff, decimal is the data type you want to use here. So Microsoft is always right, and that's why we're using this type here. What I also want to add is an original price. Now, what do I mean with that? It's simply a way to show discounts. So the original price might be, I don't know, $49.99, and this thing is discounted. So the price now is $19.99, and then we can add a line through class or a line through style to the original price, and then show the actual price there in big fat green letters, I don't know, or numbers. Anyways, let's continue with this, because this is not very exciting, I guess. So another property would be is public. So in another episode then, when we add forums where we can add new items, we can decide if this thing is still in draft mode or if this thing is public. Then we add another boolean value, which is called is deleted for our soft delete. And then another relation again, the category, of course. So every product will have a category, and we also add the category ID to the product, category ID. And now two more are left. What I like to do is add a date time for date created, and this date created like that, and this is by default a date time now. And the last one, if we make an update to this thing, then we change the date updated. Whew, okay, I think that's it. So we got the ID, the title, description, the image URL, the price, the original price, 2 booleans is public, is deleted, then the category, then the date created and date updated. Okay, so with that we got our models, and then we can go to the imports Razor already, and let's just have a look at the usings. Yeah, this is a good place to add also Blazing Shop shared, because then we have the reference to the models in every Razor component then. Otherwise we would have to add the using or the complete path of the namespace in our Razor components. Okay, now what can we do next? Well, we see the index Razor here, and this is what you see at the very first page here. This is our index, and as you can see, again, if you're not that familiar with Blazor and components, that this thing here is actually another component. So this is an HTML page where you see the end result of all the components, but this is made out of this HTML text here. The page directive is there to tell the application that this is a page with that URL, then standard HTML, and then this thing here, which is another component, survey prompt with a title, and this is already a parameter. And you can see the survey prompt here in the shared folder, and this is then again also standard HTML, and we also see a code block here where we can write C# codes, and this is the great, if not the very best thing about Blazor WebAssembly or Blazor in general. It doesn't matter if you're at the client or at the server, you can write C# code, and we can use the models we just created on the client and on the server. I just love that. And here, as you can see, this thing here is called title, and this is the parameter that you can see here. So with that, you give a parameter to a child component in that case, and you can then use this parameter here with the add sign, with the add character in the HTML markup. And with that, we can of course replace the survey prompt or replace the whole code here and display a list of products. And for that, we also create a component. So let's do that. And please forgive me if I'm on the other screen. Maybe you already noticed that, but let's just create this component now. So we have a folder pages for full pages, like the index page here, and a folder shared for components that are, well, shared between several pages maybe, or even between other components then, because of course every component can have then another component, and this one can have another component, and so on. So on the shared folder, we click add Razor component, and we call this product list for displaying a list of products. And let me remove the H3 here, because the first thing I want to add is a list of products. So we get a, is it a property? No, let's add a private variable, just a list of products, type products. And this is already a new list of products. And maybe we can add one already. So like that, maybe we have a new product. Again, with several properties already. And now please forgive me, but I will copy and paste this, and I will of course provide these products in the video description. I think this is just too boring to really write every product down here. And I would just leave it at that, or maybe just add another one so we have a list really with 2 products. So the first one would be the book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you did not read this, you really have to. I really recommend this one. And then another product maybe would be this thing here, a new product. One of the best games ever made, of course, Half-Life 2. If you haven't played this one, you really have to do this. So before you continue, read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and play Half-Life 2. Alright, so we have a list of products. We've got 2. You can already see the category ID here. I prepared this and the ID, of course, is wrong. We will change this not in 1 minute, but a bit later. We will change this soon. But this is just important to have a list of products, and then we can write some HTML to display them on that page or on that component. So what I want to build with this is just an unordered list that will then display every single property of a product. So we start with the unordered list, and we also add a class. I have to mention maybe that we've got Bootstrap here, the CSS framework or the CSS library, and with that there is a bunch of classes available. So first we add this unordered list, and then what we can already do is we add a for each, and as you can see with the add character again, we can write standard C# code. Of course we need the add character here, but after that it's really just C# code we can use here. So for every product in our products collection now, we do the following. We add a list item with the class media and my3. This my stands for margin on the y-axis, so in this case top and bottom. Then we add a div with the class media image wrapper, and this is a class we have to write ourselves. It's not much CSS we have to write ourselves, but there's just a little one, so the images look a bit better. Then we add an a tag with a link, and this will already be a link to the actual product details page that we will also add in a second. And with that we also need the product ID. And this is already another important or interesting fact, because with that you see that there are of course variables possible with pages, and in this case this will be the product ID. If this is going too fast and you think, Jesus Christ, I have no idea what this guy is talking about, please tell me in the comments, then I will change that and explain a bit more in the next parts of this series. But otherwise just follow along. So we add the image with the product image property, and also a text product title. This would be the image and the div. And then we add another div with the class media body. This will be the information of that product. Again, we add an href with the link to the product ID, and the link or the text for the link this time will be a title with h4. We add or we remove the margin to the bottom add the product title here, or display the product title. This is our link. And after that, we simply add a paragraph with the product description, and then already the price. And as I said, we will use the original price here to display the price in another style. But of course we have to check if an original price is actually available, because we will also add products that have no original price, or where the original price is maybe not more expensive than the actual price. And in this case we should not really show this, right? So, but in the case we have an original price, we add another class or another title with text muted, and then original price. And this is another CSS class we have to add. It's not much. The currency we're using is US dollars here. Product original price. So this will be our original price, and then we add the actual price here. So many prices. Dollar at product price. Okay, I think that's it. Now that's it. And also here is a point missing, and this should be it. Okay. So we added a list of products. There are only 2 for now, but we've got a list of products, and we added the HTML here. And now there's only one thing left, and this would be adding this product list to the index page. So we go to the index and we remove this here, and then add product list. And that's it. This is how we see all our products here. And we save this, and thanks to the watcher, this is already reloading. And when we now have a look at the browser, you see the products are here. Isn't that nice? And then there's also the links available. There are also the links available, but if we click them, there's nothing at this address. So we have to change this, of course. And as I already said, there is a little CSS we have to add. And let me just have a look and then go back to our project here. Okay, great. So CSS is done here in the www root folder. I think you can also say www.root, right? And then the app CSS down here. As you can see, there are some classes already, but we want to add some as well. And this is pretty simple. First, we've got the price, which just gets a green color. Then we've got the original price with the text decoration line through. And then we've got the media image wrapper, it should be, yep. The wrapper here, and this thing gets a width of 200 pixels, also the same height, and we say text align center. Now let's see how this looks, but I think, yeah, there is no change recognized in the CSS file, so we just have to save something else, or maybe save a model. No, not working. Okay, then we just stop and reload the app by ourselves. I actually thought it would recognize a change in the Razor file, or even saving the Razor file, and then it would restart. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know why actually. Okay, this is not exactly what I wanted, so maybe we have to add something else. Let's see, let's go back to Visual Studio and to the product list. Media image. Okay, this thing is missing, I guess. We've got the image wrapper, but yeah, we need also the media image. So let's add the media image here. And this gets a maximum height of 200 pixels. Also a maximum width of 200 pixels. And then a border radius. Border radius 6 pixels. Margin bottom of 10, and also a transition, because when we hover over this thing I want to add a little effect. So media image hover, and then transform scale 1.1. And here we have to add the seconds. Okay, maybe if you save it now. Yes, now it recognized the change. See, I don't know why. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. If you know why, please tell me in the comments. Okay, and this looks much better, I think. I don't know why this is not growing. I'd really love to see this growing. We got the media image actually. Media image, hover, transform, scale 1.1. That's strange. Let me have a look. I don't want to waste too much time with the CSS stuff. Media image wrapper, we've got the media image. And when we add the hover here, there is nothing there actually. Ah, I see. You've seen it already, right? I know this. Can we just reload? Yes, we can. Okay, now we've got this beautiful effect. The lists or the images of the product list are growing, and again when we click here this doesn't really work because there's nothing at the address. So maybe we should change this, right? Maybe we can change this this kind of error message or not found message that there is nothing at this address, so we can add the product details component to our project. Let's do exactly that, and we do this again in the shared folder. But maybe just to recap real quick, what have we done? We have a list of products in the code block here, and we've got an unordered list with a for each, and in this for each we have a list item where we simply display some properties of the actual product. Okay, and with that now we added links to the image and to the title, and when we click there we want to get to another page, the product page with the product ID here. Okay, and now I can already tell you that this will not work when the products are here. So what we will need in a second is an actual service that can provide the products to the product list and also to the product details page, because otherwise the other option would be to again use a parameter in the or for the actual component, the one that you have seen in the survey prompt right here. But in this case, we would have to give the complete product to this component, and there is a better way to do this. We will do this with a service, and we can even use this service then later in another episode when we actually make a call to the backend and to the database maybe, that then provides all the products. But you will see what I mean by that when we just build this. So we add a new Razor component and we call this one now product details. We are already 40 minutes in, so this first part will be a bit long. But anyways, here are the product details, and what we want to do is we tell this thing that this is an actual page, and that's why this is the wrong place for this thing. Actually, we don't want to have this in the shared folder. Let me delete this again and start over. Delete. Yes, delete this and add it to the pages, because then doesn't really matter. Actually, we can do this manually, of course, but with that we then get the page directive. Do we get the page directive? Products details, like that. No, we don't get it. So you see, good that I tested this. We have to add it manually. It doesn't matter if you add it to the pages folder or not. So this is a page with the name or the URL products, and then we also add a parameter in curly braces, and this parameter is called ID. And you can see with ID we cannot really do much with the ID, because the whole list, that was my stomach, it's 6 in the morning, so maybe I have to get some breakfast now and not only drink some coffee for breakfast. By the way, have I told you that I really like coffee? Maybe you want to buy me some. Sorry about that. Okay, so we have the parameter ID, and yeah, what I wanted to say is, you see that the product list is actually here in the product list Razor file, and of course we cannot access them just like that. Actually, we have to either give a product as parameter to the component, and we could do this. Of course, we could, in the product list here, we could add the product details component and only display this component when the user clicked on a product. But then we would have to use some Boolean values to show, and I don't know, I really don't want to start with that. What I want to do, and I think this is the better way, we just use a page, we give this page an ID, and then we use a service that provides the products, the product list, and also single products to these components, and we don't have to do all this other stuff that just doesn't feel right. But with that, we have the ID of the product here, and we see the product details page. And let's just test it like that, because now we really need this product service that provides all the items. But we save this now, and I don't know if this already has been reloaded. Yes, it has been reloaded. And as you can see here now, this URL changed, but the Razor component doesn't seem to be there. So we have product and ID, and the link is also product with the ID. Oh yeah, one more thing we can already do is we have to add this parameter, of course, to the code block. So we have a property of type string, has to be string, and we call this ID. The case doesn't really matter, it's just important that the name is the same and that we add the attribute, not parameter. There it is, that's the one. So now these two match. Okay, so now we can do something with this. We can, for instance, say product details for products with ID and then ID, something like that. And now I hope that the page is not, I don't really get it, .NET 5, it's not really working. Let's just stop and start this manually. Okay. And now this works great. And can we also do it here? Just reload the page, click, there it is. That's what I wanted to do. So we've got the links and the components or the page for the product details now. And before we move on with that, we now finally add a service. And I think I'm saying this now for the third time. This service will be there to provide the products, the list of the products, and also the single products for the details page here. And to use or to add these services, we also add a new folder. So for the Blazing Shop client project, we add a new folder, services, and to have a little bit structure. For that, we also create a folder for the product service, and there will also be a category service. And now we add an interface first, which would be a new item. This is the I product service. And then, of course, the implementation class, add new item class product service, and this thing will implement the I product service like that. And then before we implement them, we also have to do another thing. We have to register the services so we can use dependency injection, because we will inject these services in our components and we will use the interface for that, and the application needs to know what implementation class we want to use when we inject the interface, and for that, for telling the application what implementation class it should use, we have to register the service here in the program CS file of the client project. So we say builder services and then add scoped, and we tell this thing now that for the I product service we want to use the product service like that, and we can of course add some using directives here, using Blazor Shop client services product service. And there we have it now. Okay, great. So this is the registration, and then back to the interface. We want to have two things. The first thing now is the list of the products, and the second thing then is a method to load these products. And with load products, we will later make a web service call to our web API. But first, list products, and this is a property, so we also add the getter and the setter, and we need of course the type, and then we add a method load products. like that. And then we go to the implementation class, and with control period, we can say implement the interface. We don't need all this stuff here. But we want to implement the method, of course. And now in this method, I add all the products. And as I already said, there will be, I think, a link to a text file available in the video description. And in this text file, you will get this here, or you go to the GitHub repository, because this will also be available there. Because with that, now we've got 9 products with 3 different categories: great games, great consoles, a nice camera, and also great books. Yeah, and that's it for the service, right? So the load products method simply sets the products. And also what I want to do is we initialize this thing already with an empty list. Okay, so this is the product service already. And now before we go back to our details component, we go to the product list, because we don't want to have the products here like that as a private variable. What we can do now is use the products of the product service. And for that, we inject the service first. But before we do that, we go again back to the imports razor and add the service here with using Blazing shop client services product service. And now this thing should be available in our product list here, and we can simply inject it with inject I product service and call this thing product service. And now we can say in all the products of the product service products, we want to display all this. And here we have to load the products. And for that, there is a wonderful lifecycle method of this Blazor or Razor component. So we add protected override, and then we already get it on initialized. And I have no idea why it is still formatting the method that way with .NET 5, but anyways, it works. And we say product service load products. All right, and with that now, when this page is reloading, we should see some more products. Great, so this already works nicely. That's great, but still we can click a product and only see this title here. So we have to modify the product details component now, of course. So let's do this now. We go to product details razor. Now the first thing we have to do here is receiving the actual product, right? So for that, again, we need the product service, as I already told you a bunch of times. And we inject this thing again with product service, and then we move to the code block here. And for that, we again add the onInitialized methods with protected override void onInitialized. And as you can see here, these are the 3 available methods for the life cycle, or of the life cycle of the Razor component. We have onInitialized. After that, then there's the option to use onParameters set, and after that, the method onAfterRender is called, but we use onInitialized here. And also what I want to add is a private variable now for the actual product, and we will set this variable with the help of the product service in the onInitialized method. So we've got the product, which is null in the beginning, and then in the onInitialized we first check if the products are already loaded in the product service. So if product service products is null, or the count, the count of the products is 0, so product service products count is 0, and then in this case we load the products. Now, why am I doing that? Quite simple. If the user accesses a product by its ID instead of accessing the user accesses the product with the URL directly without being on the product list page first or on the index page, then the product service hasn't been started, and then the products are null actually, so the products haven't been loaded. And in this case, so when the user enters the URL of a product directly, sharing it with someone else, for instance, then in this case we have to load the products. So product service load products, and then the products are loaded, and then we can set the products in this component with product service products first or default, where the ID, and here you can see that the ID is important again, and we have to parse this to an integer, parse the ID like that. Okay, that should be it. And of course, when we are making calls to the web service, we have to do this asynchronously, and just have a look at some more things. But we are already, well, this video is already a bit longer than the other ones, so, and we've got some stuff to do still, so let's just continue with that. So we've got our code block now ready. We've got the private product, we've got the ID, which is the parameter here, we've got the onInitialized, and what we can then do here, for instance, is just displaying the product title, just to test this like that. Okay, we save this. It has been reloaded, and when we now access this thing, we see the title. Isn't that great? Ready Player One, Ready Player One, got the Xbox, Super Nintendo, and all the games. Okay, well, and now we again add some HTML to display all the details of the product. So what we can do here now is adding another div first with the class media. Then we've got the div class media image. This time it's the big wrapper. We have to add this one as well to the app CSS, and the image with the class media image big this time. Could have also called this details, but anyways, this works. We add now the products image here again with the text products title like that, and then we add another div of class media body again, it looks similar to the list. That's true. But it works, right? So we have the product title. And we have a paragraph with the product description. Again, we have the if condition if the product original price is greater than the product price, then we show an H6 with the class text muted and original price with products original price, and then we also show the actual price with the class price, and this is $at product price. And then the last really important thing would be a simple button with the class button primary, and where we can also add an icon which is a card icon, and then add some spaces and then say add to cart. Okay, and I think this should be it. It is reloading. There it is, and now we see the details, and we have to add some CSS again, and this was the media image big wrapper and the media image big, and we also have to make some changes in the case that people are using or watching our store in or on a phone, maybe. So in the case, or we simply have to make this responsive. But first, the media image big. So media image big. And in this case, I think we can just copy this. And we just make the image a little bit bigger. And then we've got the big wrapper. For that, we can also copy this. Media image big wrapper, and we also just increase the size. But then we also have to cover the responsive case here. So let me just go. Why is it formatted like that? I don't know. Ah, because it's the same ID. Okay. So add media. For the maximum width, I want to set this to 1023.98 pixels. So this is kind of the iPad size. Then we add the media class and change the flex direction to column. Also media image big wrapper and the media image wrapper getting width 100%, height is auto, and the text line center. And then for the big image, we set the maximum width to 300 pixels. Okay, think that's it. I'm trying to restart the application with saving something. Okay, now with the product details razor, I saved it and now this works. This is great. We've got the product with ID 1. There it is, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And when we now make this a little bit smaller, we see that we changed the flex direction to a column, and we can even make this, or make this even more smaller, even smaller. You know what I mean? And then the navigation menu also changes, and the same should be working for the list. As you can see here, this changes. Beautiful. So we've got our product list, we've got our product details. We can click the add to cart button, but of course this is not working yet. And I think there's only one thing left now, and these are the categories, because, and the nav menu, the categories and the nav menu, because we want to see the categories here in the nav menu. As you can see here, this should be the result, and this is how it looks now. I also removed the text welcome to Blazing Shop. Maybe we can change that as well. Okay, I hope you're still with me. A lot of stuff we are doing here. So back to Visual Studio now. And I would say to make the categories work, we also need another service, which would be a category service. So we add another folder to the services folder here and add category service. And again, we add an interface, which would be the I category service, and then the implementation class category service implementing the I category service, like that. And again, we register this thing here so that our application knows what's going on when we inject the category service. So I category service, and we use the category service here. Okay, this should already work. And for the interface, we have another property, which is a list of categories. Almost. Categories. We add the type, remove the public here, and then we need another method similar to the product service. We call this load categories, like that. All right, save this, and then we go to the implementation class. Again, we implement the interface, remove this. And for the load categories now, again, quite simple to the product service. We just set a list of categories, and this first is an empty list of categories. Now, should I just copy and paste this? Well, why not, right? So again, have a look at the video description. These are just 3, but still, we've got categories set to a new list of categories. And pay attention to the IDs here. And then actually you can use any category you want, of course. I used books, electronics, and video games. The URL is important for the parameter then in the URL, because we want to filter by the categories, and you will see this in a minute. And then I also added an icon. In this case, it's the book. Here it's a camera for the electronics. And then I used Aperture for the video games just because I love the Portal games by Valve. And well, maybe you know it, in the Portal games there is a company called Aperture Science. And this is pretty amazing. I just love these games. So let's just use this icon here. So we've got our categories. Isn't that great? And now we have to go back to the, no, we don't have to go back to the index. We have to go to the nav menu actually. So let me just open it that way. With Control P, you can look for the classes or the files in your project. And here we see new interesting information. The very first thing you would like to add is the category service, or inject the category service. For that, I would like to use the using, or add the using directive in the imports again. Pretty similar to this one here. So let me just copy and paste this. And in this case, we've got the category service. Now it is available. And back to the nav menu, we first inject the category service because we need the categories. So category service, and what I want to do then is remove the counter and fetch data links, and then again use a for each loop to go through the categories, and then simply use links for the categories, and by that we filter our index page by the categories. Okay, and what we now also have to add is another method to the code block down here. Again, I want to use the onInitialized to load all the categories, of course. So protected overrides onInitialized, and here we say category service load categories. We don't have to check if the categories are null or not, because the nav menu is loaded in any case. So no matter where the user enters this page, this thing will be called, and then we will get all our categories, of course. And then I remove, or first I add a drop-down divider. Just to separate this from the home link, like that. And then again we use a for each for every category in category service categories. Actually we can just copy this, put it up here. As you can see, the nav link is another component, but this is a built-in component provided by Blazor WebAssembly here, or by the framework. So we do not see it here in the Solution Explorer actually. There are a bunch of other built-in components, especially when we add forms. We've got input texts, input text areas, input selects, and so on. And with these, we will use these to add new products, of course, in the administration backend maybe. But anyways, we are using the nav link here, and the href is different. In this case now it's category URL. The icon now is category like that. Category, oh no, what is happening here? Category icon like that, okay. And the text is also different, and this would be category name. All right. Okay, and I think this is already it. So we added the onInitialized, we changed the nav menu, we can delete these menu entries, of course. And then let's have a look at the index razor. We have to modify this as well, because of course we want to filter the products that we show here. And this, I think, would be the last thing then we have to change. But now the page has already been reloaded. You can see that the menu has changed. We are getting to our result here. In this case now we see all the categories. We can click them, but nothing happens for now. Right? So we have to add another page directive at in the index razor file. So let's go back to Visual Studio. Now the very first thing you see, page and then the /, but we can add another page directive also with the / and then just add a category or a parameter, which would be the category URL. Again, the case doesn't really matter. We can just write it like that and then also add a code block. Okay. And in that code block, we now add the parameter category URL. So prop. Again, this has to be a string. Well, this is a string anyway. So a string and then category URL, and we use the parameter attribute here, parameter, and that way now the component knows that this is a parameter that is provided by this URL here. After that, we can initialize the category, private category, which is null. And then we use the method onParameterSet to get the actual category by the category URL or with the help of the category URL. And then we get the ID and the title that we can use then on that page here. So protected, override, and then give me something, the onParameterSet here. And now if the category URL is not null, we have to check this because we are accessing the index page. So maybe we want to display all the products or just the ones of a certain category. And in this case, the category is category service, categories first or default, where the category URL to lower equals the category URL to lower, like that. And if the category is zero, the category is null, category URL, then we set the category to a null, because in that case we can show the complete list. And what's going on here? Oh, of course, we have to inject the category service. So inject I category service, category service. That's the one. And now I hope this works. Yes. Okay, great. Okay, and now with that, we can add another if condition up here. So if the category is not null, we show the products of this category, but if it is null, we just put the product list here, and then we also add the title, welcome to Blazing Shop. Love that name. And in this case, we can say welcome to the, and then category name section. And we do something else. The product list gets parameter, which would be the category ID, and of course this is not there yet, but it will be in a minute. So we go to the product list razor file. We add the category down here, which is a nullable integer, category ID as parameter. By default it is null. And then we also have to change the for each year and add the, or use the ternary operator is the correct name, I guess, in English. Category ID, if the category ID is null, then we just display all the products, and if not, from the product service we get all the products where the, and you see that now everything is coming together with the product category ID equals our category ID here in the component. And now when we go back, we see that the category ID is actually working. Okay, we saved everything, and let's just see if this works. There's our application. Welcome to Blazing Shop. This is great. We can go back, and now we go to the book section, electronics and video games. We can reload the page. See this, we can reload this page and see the product here. Great. One last thing I want to change is really just minor in the index HTML. I want to change the title here, and in the nav menu I want to change the brand name here. Oops, and I added this. Okay, no, and I saved everything, and now we go back, reload this, and there is our shop. So we see a list of products. We can click them, we can try to buy them, but this is not working yet. This thing is responsive. We have categories and can filter our products by categories. And this is it, I would say. This is the very first episode of the Blazing Shop. And yeah, took some time already, but we did a lot. I would say we added products, we added categories. And when we have a look at the code, and in particular at Git, we can create a Git repository. So yeah, let's do this really quick. We've got the Blazing Shop. We add this to GitHub. Repository name is Blazing Shop. This is not private. No, this is alive. This will be available. Blazing Shop. This works for me. Create and push. Perfect. And when we then have a look, well, of course we have no changes here, but we can see that we have added a bunch of files. What am I doing? I think the important ones is of course the service here, and also of course all the Razor components. Actually everything was important. I don't know what I'm doing here. I just wanted to push this repository and then tell you what we have added. But I think when you're still with me when you're still with me with this chaotic episode and tutorial, or call it whatever you want to call it, then you know what we have done. And I think this is great. And again, if you're still with me, now it's your chance. Tell me, please, in the comments, what should I do next? I'm thinking of already adding a web API and the SQL Server Express together with Entity Framework, so we can store everything in the database and we don't have to add products, categories, and whatever is coming in the future in the code. We just do this with the database. So Web API and Entity Framework would be something we can do. Then of course already the option to add new products with a form and with validations. That's an interesting topic. Maybe a search bar to search products. The cart would be interesting, and looking at the orders. Ratings and reviews would be a topic I'm thinking of. And of course authorization and authentication, so that users can register and log in with the JSON Web Token, and then adding roles so that an admin can see the form to add new items, and a normal user would just see his or her items or products that she or he has ordered. So that's a lot of stuff that we can add in later episodes of this tutorial series. Okay, but I would say we are done here. Thank you very much for watching. And thank you again to all my supporters who bought me a coffee. Maybe you want to buy me a coffee as well sometime. Apart from that, I really appreciate a thumbs up and maybe even subscribing to my channel. Make sure to click the bell icon, and in that case you will be notified if there's a new episode available of the Blazing Shop series or the blog series or anything else. Maybe you also want to subscribe to my newsletter to get early access to the course that will result from this chaotic series here, and the course will be much more structured. Promise you that. Have a look at the video description for all the links. You saw the GitHub repository. And one last thing, if you want to dive deeper already into Blazor WebAssembly, please feel free to have a look at my Blazor WebAssembly full stack bootcamp. Either here on YouTube, there's a 2-hour preview, or again, check the link in the video description for the complete course on Udemy. Again, thank you very much for watching and staying with me for such a long time. And I see you next time. Take care.